KFSR at CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger, a public affairs program featuring stories from all over the Central Valley with Sevag Tateosian, 90.7 KFSR.
Welcome to another edition of the Central Valley Ledger. We are recording via Skype from our homes today. Hope everybody's having a good day. Our guest this week is Eddie Zamora. Now, I met Eddie years ago. He used to be in banking. I'll let him explain a little bit about his background. Eddie, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, Eddie, let's first talk about right now you're in Bakersfield, right?
Yes, I am. I am a new resident of the great city of Bakersfield.
So when I met you, you were in Fresno, and you're a person of many talents. So you were in the banking industry, right? But before that, talk about, did you go to Fresno State or Bakersfield College?
Yeah, so before my life in banking, and then where I am currently now, I grew up in the Sierra foothills in Squaw Valley primarily. Had some time in Los Angeles. I went to Reedley High School, graduated from there, and then attended Reedley College for a tiny bit, then transferred to Fresno City, then went over to Fresno State, graduated there, and then kind of, at that point, try to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I had no clear direction on what I was going to do, and kind of started the path, I guess, to where I'm at now.
So the other day, it's funny you mentioned Squaw Valley. The other day, we're sheltering in place. So the other day we wanted to take a drive. So we went out and got pizza at the pizza place in Squaw Valley, and it was a nice scenery. It was very green. So sometimes, it's so beautiful out there when it's not dry.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely a lot of great memories of growing up in the Sierra Nevada foothills and seeing all the wildflowers, and of course the oaks that grow up and dot the hillsides. And of course, being so close to Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park was always a great, bonus for living in that area, right?
So at some point you decide you're going to get into banking. When did that decision come about?
Yeah, so I was working, and going to school. And at one point, I believe I had two jobs, and we're trying to make ends meet with also balancing that with college. That was something that was always really important to my mom. And I was working at Sears, so in sales for many years, working my way through college. And then I saw an opportunity to work at a large bank that had, I saw some postings. I kind of wanted a little bit more kind of a set schedule. And so that's kind of originally what got me into it. Didn't stay too long at that first endeavor at banking. But then, of course, another position opened up as a personal banker for the Sanger area, actually. And then last minute, they decided, hey, we're going to switch you over to North Fresno. And I was like, what? North Fresno, really? So, kid from Squaw Valley, going now to a branch that was kind of a higher wealth area. And so that's kind of started my footsteps in banking.
You climbed the ladder in banking. And so when I met you, you were a manager, you oversaw, a lot of employees. Tell us a little bit about what you learned through banking. I mean, I imagine it's a great career to get into.
Yeah, and just thinking back to my career there, I had some amazing mentors. I had people that believed in me and helped to build me up and encourage me. And I think even to some extent with certain individuals, I think they saw more in me than I did. And I think, that's something that I'm really grateful for. Of course, my teams that I managed were awesome. I really look back on those days very fondly of working with a dynamic team, getting to know them really well on a personal basis, but also, pushing along the metrics and everything that we have to follow and smooth operations. But I think it was the right job for the right time. And I really learned a lot about the business world. And even in particular, I remember sitting down, and this happened numerous times, but one time, a mother brought in their child to open their first banking account. And I was like, wow, this is so neat that people actually take their kids in to open up banking accounts. Because, my mom was always working. We were single parent household and latchkey kid, right? And then again, another time where an older sibling brought their younger sibling in to open up a bank account, just kind of walking through the steps. And really, just understanding kind of the financial world and business acumen and those type of things, I think really helped a lot.
So when you and I met, we were partnering in financial education. How important is financial education?
Oh, I mean, I just alluded to that right now in terms of, working with people that are underbanked. At one point, Bank on Fresno was something that I worked heavily on with you. And, just being able to have those skills that are necessary in terms of being able to just manage your finances, understanding how a bank account works, realizing that, you have the availability to be able to go onto online banking or a mobile app, really to manage your finances, set up alerts, things like that. It's critical, and it's a foundation that I think, sadly, a lot of people don't have, or maybe they never had the opportunity to do so. And so that was always something that was near and dear to my heart because, for my own experience, I didn't really have any knowledge on that growing up. And so to see these parents and these older siblings and family members really, help to, teach their teenagers the importance of managing your checkbook, ensuring that you don't overdraw, things like that, I think really opened up my eyes a lot. And again, I think, with transitioning from a personal banker and then into a branch manager in about a year and a half, I think that really kind of gave me a really good idea and of what our customers were going through and kind of their experiences.
From banking, you made the interesting decision. I mean, we worked together and I worked at United Way. So you did work with nonprofits on a regular basis, but something happened when you were at Bank of America or B of A. You took a job with Red Cross. How hard was that decision to go from corporate to nonprofit? The two worlds are a little different.
Yeah, most definitely. And the thing I would have to say that I really learned at my time there with B of A is that, I not only was I a branch manager, I also helped run their corporate social responsibility, at least at a local level, under the direction of the market president. It really helped to encourage volunteerism. I'd make contact with people such as yourself, or Sharon from Susan G. Komen, or Michelle from Junior Achievement, or all these different wonderful organizations that I had the ability to connect with and just learn about their missions and kind of their whys behind why everyone's involved. And I do really believe in terms of, I think it's always important to share what you have, right? Whether it's time, talent, or treasure. And I growing up, my first pair of glasses was from the Lions Club. My mom would go get, food from the community food bank. And so, and really being in that culture where volunteerism was encouraged highly, I think that really, spoke to me. And definitely, going into a new career is kind of nerve-wracking. And especially it's something that's so new. But again, with the work that I had did there with you and with others, it just seemed like a perfect fit at that time.
Your background, you're mentioning your background. Do you think that it's helped you to get to where you are today? I mean, it sounds like you've had some challenges in your background, but from when I met you till today, you don't sound like someone who makes excuses. I mean, you just go, you get it done.
Yeah, I think, I do think it provides some additional insight, right? In terms of what, I experienced. I think also in terms of, I think having mentors that really valued me as a person and could kind of see me for who I am. Those type of people in your lives can really have the biggest impact, right? Other than family members and some friends, but that really, having those conversations about career? What do you want to do with your life? What is it that speaks to you? What is it that you are drawn to? And just having those very candid conversations with mentors really helped a lot. And again, I had some really great people while I was in banking that really, helped me with that. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just, it felt good because anytime, you're doing the right thing and kind of, giving back and encouraging others to do the same and seeing the power that's there by, sharing a photo or, creating a newsletter or having a volunteer fair, which I know you came out to, just to try to pass on that excitement and for whatever reason, whether it's they're trying to build skills or, there's a mission that speaks to them because of some personal experience, you want to try to unlock that to get them to volunteer and give back. And I think we were quite successful at that during that time.
You mentioned mentors, and I'm glad you did. If people don't have, I'm big on mentors. I think there are people out there who have walked the path that you and I are trying to walk in our young careers. How does someone select a mentor, or for someone who doesn't have a mentor, why would you say they should start looking for one?
Yeah, I think mentorship is critical, especially if you don't have any, especially if you didn't have a background where people were helping you along the way. So really, I think a lot of the best mentors that I've encountered have been, or, have happened organically. It wasn't, I didn't go out and say, I need you as a mentor, right? It just kind of happened. And, one of my managers, Brandon, that I had in banking, I mean, he really took a personal interest in myself. But it's so critical to have someone that can provide you with honest feedback, whether it's positive or negative, it's going to help you grow. And because we had that relationship and that rapport where I know that he had my best interest at heart, he was never going to hold me back, along with any other mentors that I had, from, succeeding and doing what is best for me. That there's a lot of power to that. And I think it's critical that you have that type of relationship. And if you don't have one, connect yourself with people that you admire and look up to. And I think that's an easy way to do that. But again, be involved in programs like Leadership Fresno. I think my Red Cross mentor, Barry, I met through Leadership Fresno, and that's actually kind of what put me on the path to the Red Cross eventually. But, programs such as that help you to become leaders and connect you and network. I think Krista from Terry's House is another great person that just has a wealth of knowledge and that she cares about you, right? So there's, I'm lucky to have had those experiences, those people in my life. And I wish the same for everyone else.
So you were in corporate responsibility or dabbled a little bit in it when you were at B of A. How critical are corporate funds to nonprofits? Because, this area, I remember working at United Way, and this area, funding doesn't come easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, and there's something, I always say, especially in the role that I'm in now as the executive director of the Kern County and Eastern Sierra chapter of the Red Cross, this work is only possible through dedicated volunteers, amazing staff, and generous donors, right? And, when you have such a large footprint in a community, such as, some of the large banks or some other large corporations, it's incumbent upon them to not only, have the jobs there for your community, but also to make an impact. And, if I think back to some of the initiatives, with check presentations and things like that really, helped out a community, especially one like the San Joaquin Valley, right, with the several communities that dot, up and down the valley here. For a lot of those nonprofits, I mean, it's make or break, right, whether those funds are there for them. And so the ability to be able to, join together nonprofits, corporations, work together on some initiatives to figure out ways on how to make the biggest impact possible is critical. And of course, like you said, there's so many challenges here with the Central Valley. And it's just, again, with fundraising and now being on the other side of things, I see how critical it is, with budgets and sometimes those services, like for me, growing up with access to food, I mean, that's critical to help a family get by. My mom was able to use that money to pay for propane or pay for electricity. And so, just the basic things that we need in order to survive.
So the Red Cross, the one you're in charge of, Kern and Sierra County or area, talk about some of the critical things you do.
Yeah, and so definitely an interesting time to start, right?
Yeah,
Right before
definitely.
the pandemic here. So moved here in February of this year, so still relatively new to the community and to the role. Um, but of course, with the Red Cross, there's so many things that the Red Cross does that I think a lot of people aren't aware of, and even myself, I didn't before. Coming in contact with Barry, I had no idea what the Red Cross did. It just never really came into contact with it before. Just here and there at the bank, but very little. And one of the things that everyone thinks about right away is disaster response, right? They think of the hurricanes or the fires and or forest fires and things like that. But there's also the daily disasters that happen across our community, especially within the San Joaquin Valley of home fires. Volunteers will go out and respond after a call from the fire department to help a family that has nowhere to go, to get them through the next 24, 70, 72 hours, whatever it may be. The Red Cross volunteers will go out and respond. There's a lot of work also in terms of reaching out to veterans and families that have a person that is currently serving in the military. Today's Memorial Day, right? And I think that's a lot of work that people don't realize. If there's an emergency communication that has to go out to a active serving military person, the Red Cross gets the communications out to them. And of course, any type of mental health issues or concerns, we have those resources there to help people through PTSD or whatever type of challenges they're having. And of course, there's blood services and things like that. But again, there's so much that the Red Cross does, and there's so much need here in the Central Valley. But of course, the home fire response, work with military, those are all kind of the ones that I think a lot of people will have experience with, right?
For those of us who COVID-19 hasn't impacted our work,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still working full time at the health department, actually more hours now than I did in the past. But people like me who are still working, why is it important for me to give to organizations like Red Cross or some of the others that my wife and I are giving to now?
Yeah, and of course, everyone's trying to figure out how to manage through this pandemic, right? This is new to our generation and the time that we live in now. And, of course, with disaster response, right now we're gearing up for fire season. We're going to have to do things in a new way, right? If we ever, hopefully this does not happen, but if we ever have to evacuate Kern River Valley for a wildfire, we can't just open a regular shelter like we did before. We would have to, come up with new ways like, placing people in hotels, which is an additional cost that wasn't there before. There's social distancing practices such as PPE and things that have to be worn by the volunteers to ensure they're safe, but also the residents that are there or the people that are evacuated. So there is additional costs that go into it. And I think also, there's, oftentimes nonprofits will have galas or different types of in-person fundraising events, right? And now we're having to pivot from that. And so that is also a challenge, and to come up with new ways and how to still ensure that the mission is fulfilled through generous donors. And it's been awesome to see that people have been touched by stories or things that they're hearing where they're answering the call, whether it's through volunteerism or whether people are getting out to donate blood. Especially now for convalescent plasma, which is people that have recovered from COVID-19. The Red Cross in certain areas is collecting the plasma in order to help people recover from COVID-19. So and this is a time period where you see people wanting to come together and help out in any way they can. And so just to to help those nonprofits really offset costs, that way they can still fulfill their missions is critical right now.
So let's go into another area that many people may not know about you. You're a photography fan and you dabble into photos. I didn't know this until, later on after I met you, because you don't go around, telling people I'm a photographer and stuff like that. So tell us a little bit. I mean, do you have a style? What kind of photos about that side of you?
Yeah, and it started because wanted to relax. Some people will go out and go fishing, right, or go golfing or whatever it may be. And I think this is something that provides stress relief, but it also makes me get out and explore, whether it's cities or food or people or whatever it may be, nature, right? I get to go out and sit there and try to capture a great image, to take it in. And it's something, those moments are ephemeral, right? They disappear after, once you experience. And so this is one way for me to look back through my life and go back to that moment when I took that photo and kind of make it a permanent memory. And so really, I think that's been something that has been really helpful to just and have more balance in my life. But I think in addition to that, with the Red Cross, they really encourage me to continue taking pictures of events and volunteers in action. And also Susan G. Komen was another great organization that got to be able to do that. And of course, while I was at the bank, take amateur photos of things going on, and for newsletters to tell what the volunteers are doing. And the power of an image, has so much impact. And so, I wasn't expecting to take photos for the Red Cross as a volunteer or, as an employee before, or, for Susan G. Komen, but that's just something that came out of it. And just being able to capture those moments when you see an embrace of a volunteer and a person that is receiving assistance from the Red Cross, I mean, that says a lot. And so, so happy to do that. And it just brings me a lot of joy. In terms of style, really a little bit of everything, right? Just whatever I'm seeing, whatever I'm experiencing, I want to take a picture of. I think colors tend to be kind of a strong suit in terms of my aesthetic or style, but really celebrating what's around me, whether it's the city I'm living in or the community or whatever it may be, but just really being able to pull that through and then share it. So.
Going back to your work at Red Cross a little bit, now that you're on the other side, because again, I remember we used to apply for grants through B of A, and you used to be the side that was receiving the grants, and now you need to be writing the grants. So giving that whole 180 look, what have you learned through this?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it does provide a unique perspective, right? And I think, sometimes for the most part, you'll have people that will go into banking or, one line of work, and they kind of stay in that for most of their lives. And then I've noticed in the nonprofit world, kind of very similar, right? But I think it has been able to provide an ability to have an idea of what both sides are thinking, right? How critical it is that you understand the corporation, what's important to them. Why are they focusing on a particular endeavor or area that they're going to provide a grant for? Being able to connect with them in terms of hey, I used to be in, work with corporate social responsibility and understand that part of it, being able to connect. I think it also helps to provide timelines and frameworks, right? So sometimes I think some companies may be able to move pretty quickly, right? And then you have government agencies or nonprofits that maybe in certain respects may not be able to pivot it as quickly. But I think being able to align timelines, because I know at the bank, if I had to get volunteers, 20 to 30 volunteers for an event, I knew how long that would take me, right? And so now being on the other side, I could say hey, if we need to approach this company, let's give them, 2 months, 3 months, however long it may be. These are some of the materials they may want to look at because, quite frankly, in some companies, whoever the person is that you're connecting with may not, their focus may not be volunteering, right? And they have their job that they need to worry about, correct? So you have to be able to understand that part of it and realize, the best way to approach a corporation for funds or for volunteers or whatever it may be.
So we're running out of time this week on the program, Eddie, but tell us how people can donate, help you out today at the Red Cross, how people can check out some of your photography, and what else you need from us in the community.
Yeah, I think you could go to redcross.org to donate. And of course, there's great resources that are on there in terms of, disaster preparedness, which I would implore everyone to take advantage of. It's free. whether it's an earthquake or forest fire or home fire. There's plenty of resources there. The Red Cross also has a website called readyrating.org, which is great for churches and smaller companies that maybe don't have the resources of how to put together disaster response plan for whether it's active shooting or evacuations or keeping communications open in the event of a disaster with your employees. That's all there, and it's completely free. And some of the best work that we can do is ensure that we ourselves are prepared for disaster. So those are great resources that are out there. I think anytime there's something that occurs or there's always an outpouring of support, right, from people that are just willing to give of their time, talent, and treasure. But it's also during the times when there's not a disaster that are happening that, we're still trying to do disaster preparedness, still responding to those home fires, still collecting blood. That's all critical to the mission. We're really just opening up and having those dialogues with people and say, hey, what can we do? What will provide the best impact? In terms of photography, I'm on social media. You can go bluecorvusphotography.com. I also have a website. You can check out some of my work that's there. Again, it just brings me a lot of joy, but those are avenues, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, the information's there for you. So I would like if you could check it out.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful way to end the program. Eddie Zamora, from corporate to nonprofit, does a little bit of photography. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's all for this edition of the Central Valley Ledger. Thank you to CMAC Studios, and thank you to Skype for making this recording possible. To those watching this broadcast on Comcast 93 and those on AT&T 99, as well as the various online streaming measures, hope you enjoyed the program this week. Tune in next week to a new edition.
KFSR and CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger every Sunday morning at 11:30. For a complete program schedule, visit kfsr.org.